Hello, and welcome to everyone who is here for the A4Q Testing Summit Edition 2025. I am happy to be here with Nishan Portoyan today, discussing when AI becomes your testing colleague, Agentic AI in QA. So there will be a Q&A session at the end, and we have our Best Presentation and Best Speaker Awards. So please go to Nishan's profile on the A4Q Testing website and cast your vote at the end of the session. It would be much appreciated. So with this, I'm handing over to Nishan to discuss AI in testing is new, but what we're seeing now is something fundamentally different. So Nishan, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Nileen. Welcome, everybody, to this A4Q Summit. It's quite exciting for me to be here. You probably already saw my last presentations on AI. You know that I am very enthusiastic on AI, and I'm very excited to talk with you about what is going on right now in the AI environment and how it will move on. So let's dive into the agenda. We will talk about three different areas that I've divided. The first one is, what is actually this word agentic and agentic AI? What can we think about it? Or is it still not here and we're just talking theoretically about it? Then we will see on how this whole topic will be relevant for us in quality assurance. And then at the end, we will see on how our role will perhaps change if we start using this technology. But I don't want to dive very deep in this topic because most probably a lot of you just heard about the word agentic AI. So I want to make a quick cut on all the areas so that you have a brief idea on what it is about. And on the next conferences and then the next talks, I will dive deeper and show you how this whole technology works. But first of all, who is this guy talking about AI? Well, I don't like to introduce myself. I like to use AI to introduce myself. So last time, people were thinking of, is it really Nishan talking? Or is it the avatar that is talking? So this time, I can guarantee you that it's me. It's not my avatar talking to you. But I still want to introduce myself by asking ChatGPT on who is actually Nishan Portoyan. And it's very interesting to see and understand that ChatGPT actually knows a lot about me. I am very enthusiastic on AI. I work for a company in Switzerland called Infometis, where the vision and mission is to have quality and automation improving in each different customer's project. And with that, AI has started to be part of it. Because some parts it's easier to do with AI, or maybe even somewhere better to do with AI. I love experimenting with different techniques in AI, and also in the test environment. I have now worked for about 20 years in different areas, from manual testing, automation, and test management. I also work in the ISTQB Association intensively to get the new generation, the next generation, to understand and have the same passion and fire that I have for software quality assurance, and also to understand the standard of ISTQB. So with that, let's see the historical way of what happened with AI. Well, if we look at the evolution of AI, you most probably know that the first real thing that came up with AI was about 1950, where the first mentions came up with machine learning and neural network. And then we would expect that suddenly this new system, this new technology would start over and break news and get up and running. But what actually happened was the AI winter came. And with that, a long time, nothing happened in the AI area. Until there were the computers, the servers that had the capacity to move this topic on. So in 2000, generative AI has been introduced with LLMs, LVMs, LAMs. With that, we already saw that there is a potential, but still there are some issues with interacting with those systems. 18 years later, in 2018, the prompt engineering has been introduced. And with that, we were able to give the ideas that we were thinking of by text to the AI, and the AI was able to react and give answers to it. But there was one issue, the hallucination. AI was not always capable to give answers as we were expecting. So 2 years later, in 2020, the retrieval augmented generation has been introduced. By providing more detailed information to the AI to get rid of hallucination. Well, actually, they didn't get rid of it, but the answers got better and better. And by that, we were able to start using AI in our daily business. We know that this was the era where suddenly ChatGPT came up and started changing the whole industry. People were starting to use those large language models to do their tasks. And then last year, we started having also tool interactions. So in other words, that the AI was able to also take control of tools and do some areas and some parts of your work in those tools. But this year, something really exciting happened. We got introduced to agentic systems. Now, if you remember my talk 2 years ago, I already mentioned that there will come the time within the next 3 to 5 years that we will have systems completely autonomous, working and supporting us like a full department, just supporting you in your daily business. And now we're actually talking about this and we are seeing it. But first of all, let's understand, what is agentic AI? In simple terms, agentic AI is a system that is able to focus on goals and achieving them instead of working task by task, word by word, giving to them. So it has the characteristics to be autonomous, to have the ability to take own decisions. It is goal-oriented so that it can do whatever it needs to do to achieve the goals. And it starts learning on the behavior that it's taking and also learning from people doing work. And also it's able to understand how environments are changing and to act on those changes to support us in the daily business. Now, how does actually agentic AI work? Well, if you think of agentic AI, you need to understand there are 4 different parts of it. The first one, and the most important one, is the reflection. Agentic AIs are able to reflect their output to see if it meets the goals that have been set for them, or if they need to reiterate and rework it again. Then we have the planning. Once you give him a task, a goal to achieve, the first thing that it does is to understand and think, what do I actually need to do to achieve this goal? Which tools do I need to have access to? Do I need perhaps more agents that support me to achieve this goal? So by that, the agentic AI knows, okay, I know which tools I need, what kind of other agentic AIs I need to achieve my goal. And with that, it's able to have multi-agents collaborating together to achieve the goal that you're giving. So think of it like a department at the beginning with a lot of apprentices that are now learning, and each one is getting their own role. You have the test manager, you have the tester, you have the test automation engineer, you have the requirements engineer. For each single effort and for each single work, you have the dedicated agent ready with the capability and the tools to do the job that they need to do. Let's dive quickly into the technical part of what happens in those AI agents. What you see here is it gets an input. It gets the goal. One could be an email, a notification, a sensor that has been triggered, maybe a Jira task that has been moved to the next step. With that, the process in this AI agent starts. It takes the task, it understands the goal it needs to achieve, and now it thinks about it. What do I really need to do to achieve this goal? With that, it defines which tools to use. Does it need access to databases? Does it need to have access to other agents? Does it need to have access to the internet to browse websites or applications to access and work on it? And then it does the work. It starts iterating and producing the output that you need. And before handing you out the output to you, it asks itself, do I really have what I needed to do? Did I achieve the goal from my understanding? If not, it reiterates it again. If yes, it creates the goal, the output, and hands it over to you. So what you need to understand, it's not a chatbot that you can use. It's far beyond a ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is responsive on prompts. So in other words, you're asking the large language model something and it's reacting to your requests. Agentic AI, however, plans multiple steps to achieve the goal that it has given. So it's goal focused, not prompt and task focused. So it doesn't just answer questions, it solves issues that you have on a daily basis. Well, with that, how do you think will the quality assurance area change? If we think a couple of years ago, we were mostly doing hands-on testing, manual testing. We were thinking about test cases that we need to run. We started writing them to understand which steps we need to take. We started to think about what kind of risks we are trying to cover. But it was all intuitive from what we know. And then the automation came. And we started writing scripts, building the test cases that can run without our supervision. We were able to run multiple test cases much faster than manually, and always with the same quality. But with that, there was one issue. The issue that we had a lot of effort to do with maintenance, because the applications were changing, the requirements were changing, there were a lot of bugs, and we needed to react on those. In future, we will have an agentic tester that is goal-oriented, that can adapt on changes that is being done on the applications, and by that, changing the test cases extending them, or reframing them so that they achieve your goal that you have defined. But why agentic AI matters for quality assurance is more. With agentic AI, we are now able to scale coverage. We are now able to change the coverage behavior that we have right now by interacting with the system and giving the system the authority to think of, okay, what kind of application changes have been introduced? Is this changing the whole coverage? Do I need maybe to change the regression set? Do I need to add new test cases? Do I need to remove test cases that are obsolete? With that, the system is now able to adapt on changes and help us before we start running those test cases. And the next point as well is it's proactive. So instead of waiting till the application is ready and then we run and we face issues, it already knows and is able to help us understand if there are already some issues in the design, in the scripts, and being proactive, fixing it or raising bugs, for example. With that, we need to now think of our mindset and start shifting our mindset. Because we will not focus on tools to build test cases, to write scripts, and think of the relevance of those test cases and that we didn't miss anything, to collaborating with a colleague that understands technically how everything works and can support us by us giving them guidance and controlling what kind of output it gives. So our task is now changing from hands-on execution details and looking on which test cases have failed and if the coverage is correct to strategic changes. What is the goal of our testing? What do we want to achieve? How it will achieve? That's on us to provide to the agentic AI. But one thing you need to understand, there are some misunderstandings that go around. First of all, agentic AI, it's not magic. If you don't have the proper instructions, the proper guidance, the proper documentation of your application, it will not understand what this application will do. Furthermore, it is not fully autonomous. It still needs your directions and your interventions to challenge the output that the agentic AI is producing. So it will not replace you, but it will start augmenting your current work that you're doing so that you can start shifting your role and your work to the more relevant parts. Because there are some limitations with the current system. First of all, AI agents cannot see and react on quality like we humans do. They have their roles, their tasks, their theoretical areas, but they don't think like human beings. We don't have currently a super AI that thinks better than human beings and is better and stronger and more intuitive. They're still narrow and they still need supervision from you. Then you need to understand that the AI doesn't see the application like you see. So with other words, usability, intuitivity, as a human being is still the challenge for you to see and understand if the AI is doing what it needs to do or not. And the other thing, and the most important thing, is it has still issues with business values. It still doesn't understand the whole business rules and how this works. So that's why it's very important that you support the system. But if we look at risk-based testing, what we had in the current areas is we were analyzing our requirements and the changes. We were reviewing our regression sets, fixing them, and we were still not really sure if we were covering the 80%, for example, of the risks, because the way how we were prioritizing those test cases and those changes were fully intuitive. Maybe you had some techniques, but it's still intuitive. There is still the intuition that took place on those test cases. With Agentic AI, you will have the possibility that the changes will automatically be impacting the current set that you have. It will dynamically change the test selections based on the changes that you have introduced, so that they can change the risk coverage based on the data that is getting from the requirements. And it's continuously reprioritizing the data, the test cases that you are providing and you are monitoring, so that it has the same coverage, maybe somewhere better than the coverage that you had. Let's think about exploratory testing. In exploratory testing, you will have the possibility to suddenly see edge cases that normally, if you give those tasks to human beings, they will not find it because they're all based on their experience. Yes, you give them the area to test, you give them a test charta. However, it's still a human being that is not really using a specific technique every single time the same way, so that it can figure out those special edge cases. However, AI can support there and figure those out. With that, it will have a systematic way on exploring the application and have a much higher coverage than a human being will have. And, which is very big advantage, that if it finds a bug, an issue, it will create the documentation, gather all the information that it needs, so that it can provide the information to the developer. Maybe the developer is another agentic AI system that will then improve and fix those test cases and the code. With the test cases, by changing the application, you will realize that the application changes have a huge impact on the test cases that have been automated. With Agentic AI, the test cases can be changed automatically without human interaction, so that the test cases will cover the new functionality of the application without causing effort on human beings to review and rework those scripts that they are working, but more supervising that the test cases are still running and monitoring if the business rules and the business focus is still correct. With that, let's see an example that I already introduced 2 years ago on how Agentic AI can do and support today. Well, maybe you remember that I had the vision that you have an agent that you can give a requirement and it produces test cases and runs them also. Well, those were different tasks with human beings in between. to review, rework, and give the next command to do the work. Now with Agentic AI, this is a fully automatic flow. So what happens? You create a requirement, and once you submit the requirement, for example, in Jira, the Agentic AI will take that requirement. It will try to understand the requirement. It will maybe fix some errors that happened in the requirement, and then not stop there, but go and think of which test cases would cover those requirements. And not only that, it will take those test cases, prioritize them, build the step-by-step parts of each single test case with precondition, postcondition, prepare the synthetic test data that is required to execute those test cases, deploy it into the system and execute it, and furthermore, also optimize the coverage. Change the regression test that is already existing based on the new test cases that have been introduced, changing the coverage rate, and making sure that not only the changes have been covered, but also the rest of the environment is still working. And it will adapt dynamically, modifying the plan and telling you which sets have been run and why, based on which requirements, which changes, and how the coverage was throughout the whole environment. And what about us? What will we do? Will we just sit in front of monitors, watching around and thinking of, okay, what do those agents do? Grab one coffee after the other? Well, not really. We will start changing from traditionally writing test scripts, specifying the test cases step by step, to transitioning to providing the goal and the guidance so that the AI is able to build the test cases based on the quality standards that you're giving, based on the requirements that the company has, teaching the AI what it needs to do. So our role is supervising the AI agent instead of building all those elements, reviewing the results with our expertise and thinking of how can it achieve the goals. With this new role, we will need some new skills. And which skills will that be? Well, first of all, and most important, and I repeatedly mentioned this, you need to know how to efficiently prompt. If you don't know how to talk with the AI, you will not be able to provide the specific details the AI needs to achieve its goal. You will need to critically assess what the AI is generating, because your judgment as an expert is something that the AI is not capable of doing right now. The strategic test designing will change as well, because you will be focusing now on test strategies rather than implementing details and scripting. And which is also important, what about the ethical oversight? You need to make sure that the AI is following the quality standards and ethical standards that your company requires. And what are the key opportunities with the AI? Well, you will be able now to suddenly scale your coverage without increasing the human beings, the testers, the requirements engineers, and having more coverage on your application than before. You will have a colleague that runs 24/7, supporting you and helping out with all the tasks without going to coffee break, without being ill or having any issues, working without a break for you. And with that, we are able to achieve more and more and better and higher automation levels so that we can make sure that the repetitive parts are being handed over to machines, and we can use our brain to do what we human beings are meant to be doing. There is one core challenge that is right now hindering us to do this. And most probably you think about the same that I do. And that's the trust. We don't trust the AI decisions that are being taken. That's why we don't start experimenting and thinking about the AI technologies to be implemented. But we need to start shifting this thinking and start giving the AI some parts to see how well it's working and how good the effort is being done from the AI. Well, what are the benefits if you would do this? You will have a colleague that is working tirelessly, supporting, finding paths that we would miss, having the repetitive tasks going over and over again without the intention of, I don't want to do this anymore, scaling easy, and making sure that the focus is done on things that are being missed currently if we would do the reviewing and the challenging of those areas. But you need to think of the limitation. The system needs supervision. It will make mistakes, and it's your goal to figure out how to change the prompting, the goal specification on the agentic AI so that it achieves its goal better and better by time. So you need to understand that the AI is an apprentice that is learning and getting better and better by your feedback. So let's get started. Let's get practical. Start using agentic AI in a sandbox environment with low-risk areas to experiment on how it's working. Establish clear measurements on when the AI is performing better than humans and where you would like to use it so that you can use this extra work effort that is being released to focus on other areas. And build verification systems to make sure that the AI is doing the right thing. I want to conclude with 4 key takeaways. First of all, we see that agentic AI is here. It's at the start. It's evolving very fast, but we need to realize it's here and we can start experimenting with it. We need to understand that we need to collaborate with those systems to be more effective, more efficient. We need to experience now, because if you don't do it, you will maybe miss something that others are learning and getting their goals done. And you need to be ready to apply new skills, new techniques to help you. I like to complete with the favorite sentence that there is. There will be 2 kinds of companies at the end of time. Those that fully utilize AI and those that are out of business. With that, I would like to thank you for being with me. I hope I gave you some intuition on what this new technology can do. I would love to connect with you and to discuss more deeper on this topic and more ideas on AI and see how this technology is improving from time to time. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Nishan, for this great presentation. It's really interesting seeing the evolution of AI where AI and testing is heading, the opportunities, but also the challenges. And I'm sure that we have a couple of questions from our audience that they would like you to answer. So let's quickly have a look. We have, how can we trust agentic AI decisions if it lacks full business context?
Well, this is exactly the point where it has the limitation. It will spot patterns that are different that you will not find, but you cannot truly understand and trust what the AI is doing. There in that point, your work is to actually challenge it because you understand the business values and you need to take the work and understand what kind of changes need to be done so that the goal that has been achieved. So in other words, you cannot trust the AI. It's your goal to challenge it.
Interesting. All right. Then let's have a look. All right. Do testers need to learn programming or machine learning now?
No, you don't need to learn programming, but you need to have a mindset shift. You need to start learning how to properly prompt. You need to understand how to supervise AIs, and you need to evaluate the systems and understand and ask yourself critically how the systems are doing the work so that you know how and where to tweak and to change so that the quality is getting better and better.
Okay. Will agentic AI replace testers in the long run?
Well, right now I will say no. It will not replace us testers, but it will reshape our roles. We need to focus more on strategic effects. We need to make sure that we focus on the ethical part and the business values and give the scripting, the writing test cases to the AI. So our role will just change.
Interesting. All right. And then how does agentic AI handle test data privacy and security?
That's a good question because Informatis, our company, is actually very focused on this topic. Synthetic test data is very important for the agentic AI usage. You don't want to give access to the AI with productive data because you have some regulatory issues and some data restrictions in your company. So you need to understand how to use those AI agents, but in a safe manner. Perhaps you remember the presentation that I had last year regarding secure AI. That's one solution, to have the AI in your environmental section without limitation on the ability what AI can do. But you need to focus on synthetic test data or mask test data. Never use productive test data on it.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that there's a bunch more questions, but we are coming to the end of our time. And if you have any additional questions, please pop them in the chat. We can pass it along to Nishan to give some more insight into this topic. And stay tuned for our next sessions. You are welcome to watch this presentation and our upcoming presentations on our social media channels, as well as the testingsummit.com website. And remember to please vote for Nishan on the testingsummit.com website for the awards that we have. So we want to thank you, Nishan, for being here today with us, and everybody that's joined us today. We hope that you enjoy the rest of the sessions that we have coming up, and we will see you soon again. Thank you, Nishan.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Always. Bye-bye.
Bye.